Prepare yourself for the terror. The prison of madness, where few enter and none return.
Welcome to Unsung Horrors. With Lance. And Erica.
Leave all your sanity behind. It can't help you now.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Unsung Horrors, the podcast where we discuss underseen horror films, specifically those with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica.
And this episode is a milestone.
Yes.
It is a milestone. Pop the champagne. It is film number 100 that we're covering on this episode.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and it's also our last film of the year.
Yes.
Before we take a month off break.
Month and a half.
Month and a half.
More than, yeah, I need a long one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but it's been a pretty rough year for both of us. And yeah, I mean, 100 movies. Thank you to all our listeners that have stuck with us for the past year and beyond. I don't know. I personally just appreciate it. It's the podcast and, you know, the listeners and the Discord channel that kind of makes me, I don't know, happy during rough times.
Yeah, this is my bright spot, and
keeps me preoccupied.
Yeah, I don't want to take a break from my bright spot, but you know, sometimes real life forces that, and you know, you do need a breather, and you need the chance to watch some non-homework movies for a little while, and you know, a lot of people are traveling in December and all that anyway, so we'll be back in like mid-January though.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch dramas and romantic comedies and Christmas movies.
You're just going to watch Adam Sandler movies all month. I know.
Oh yes,
that's
Watch Hubie Halloween and Billy Madison on repeat.
Thanks. We'll still have our end of the year episode. That'll just be a quick one. It's just going to be Lance and I sharing, 5 new to me movies that we enjoyed, maybe a few honorable mentions, but. That'll drop sometime in December, but that's going to get recorded in November, or late November. So we might miss something that we
right
watched.
After this. We're going to record it. And, you know the saying, if you love something, let it go. And I just need a break from Erica.
Yeah,
I love her.
Yes,
but I have to let her go for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what's going to happen.
Our January reunion is always the highlight of my year.
And then after we record, you're like, fuck, man, a whole other year with this guy. But no, it's No Rules November. Our last movie, again, 100th film. This is a big deal. I had to pick a good one, and I feel like I did.
I think you did.
Okay,
yes.
Good. A Candle for the Devil from 1972. Also known as the American release title, It Happened at Nightmare Inn, which I've already mentioned when announcing this pick and when I first watched it during Horror Gives Back. Stay away from It Happened at Nightmare Inn cuts out there on YouTube, the one on Tubi. Don't watch these because it's not the proper version. You're missing out. I think a lot of the lower ratings that might be on Letterboxd, I could be completely wrong, but I think it's because of the flood of the edited cut that's available out there.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Because it's a completely different movie. I started watching it on Tubi during Horror Gives Back, and I was like, this seems real choppy and a mess. Mm-hmm. And also the runtime, when I looked at the one on Letterboxd, I was like, something's off. Yeah, so Visual Ventures is the YouTube version you want to watch.
Or you can pick up the Blu-ray.
The 88 Films Blu-ray, which I picked up, which is awesome. Has great audio commentaries, extra ones, a lot of special features, an interview with... I still say Eugenio Martin, but Troy Howarth and Nathaniel Thompson, which has they have a great audio commentary. I want to give them credit now because I'm going to bring up a lot of their discussions throughout this episode.
Awesome.
They say Eugenio. I don't know if that's anglicized.
Yeah, it is.
It's Eugene, and he goes by Eugene and Gene Martin on his
it is
subcredits.
Because I think when we had Troy on for our Fulci episode, Beatrice Cenci.
And the Paul Naschy. We had him on for Paul Naschy as well.
Well, when he was pronouncing it, he was saying Beatrice Cenci. But when you listen to Stephen Thrower, he everything. Yeah. He's like Beatrice Cenci. I'm like, Jesus Christ, Thrower. So I don't feel like there's a wrong way because like given our language origins.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, for sure.
It's fine, but I just like saying "Hey, Eugenio"
I do
because it's
too.
more fun.
I do too. I think Hey Eugenio. I'm going to be saying it probably too many times
Yeah.
for no good reason this episode. But yeah, you want to watch A Candle for the Devil. The '88 film's release. I think Scorpion release had a limited, but that doesn't really count. There's no special feature.
Yeah, no.
What is A Candle for the Devil about? It's about two sisters who run an inn in Spain. And this is kind of during a changing time in Spain when no one really wants to support like a fascist country during the Franco era. So tourism is kind of just kicking off. And that's like what was happening in real life at the time too. And these sisters are seeing these young women check into their inn. And the film opens up with one of these tourists sunbathing on the roof, which these violently religious sisters are against, particularly Marta, the more fanatical of the two. She's very religious and she holds a grudge because in the past her fiance left her for a younger woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the other sister, Veronica, who's also religious but more sympathetic. We'll get into the differences in the characters. But she has like this secret young lover that she sneaks around with. So anyway, they end up accidentally killing this sunbathing woman by pushing her down the stairs. And Marta calls it the will of God and that they're called to do the Lord's work. Shortly after, the murdered sunbathing woman's sister, Laura, checks into the inn, she's obviously there looking for her missing sister. And she's kind of taking in the sights and sounds of Spain while also investigating her sister's disappearance. She finds that other young women at the inn start disappearing, including a young tourist with, quote, loose morals,
Mm-hmm.
and a very young mother who Marta and Veronica believe has no husband. And, we find out it's obvious it happens on screen. The two sisters are murdering these young women because, these victims don't share their belief system or meet their strict religious standards. And then there's kind of an interesting ending that we'll get to. So, yeah, I jumped into Eugenio Martin's films as much as I could for this episode. So after watching Candle for the Devil last month for my Jorge's Back Spain pick, I was excited to dive in, and I watched, including Candle, I watched 5 of his films. So obviously I rewatched Horror Express, which Eugenio Martin, all right, I'll stop that. Martin is best known for,
Yeah.
From 1972, Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, star power there.
Yeah.
That movie is so good. I watched it this time and it just kind of felt like a supernatural Jaws on a train. Like that's what I kept feeling.
Okay.
Like people want this entity that's jumping, into people's bodies dead. But at the same time, they're like, no, don't tell the passengers. It'll cause havoc.
Yeah.
I kept thinking like, this is a supernatural Jaws.
I've seen that movie. So we actually have the one sheet hanging up. John changed our back wall for Halloween. And I've seen that movie so many times. And every time I watch it, it's a new like upgrade or something like that. Well, not every time. Like when I was younger, like I just watched some very garbage muddled version of it. But like getting to see it in like full color and like just as it should be, perfection. I love that movie.
It's very good. I had seen it. I think I only gave it like 3 stars last time I logged it. And I was like, there's something wrong with it.
We all evolve.
Yeah. I feel like when I started on Letterboxd, I was like very particular. I was like, this is a great movie. I love it. But technically it's only 3 stars, and I have low ratings.
Yeah.
They're very subjective at the moment.
I think a lot of people did that when they first got on there. And I'm the same where everything has now changed into, an experience rating really and what it comes down to, but also like if there's a movie that is extremely well made, but I just did not get down with it or didn't like it at all, I'll still like rate it based on how well I think it's made.
Right.
But yeah, there's just some like Peter Weir movies, like Picnic at Hanging Rock. I fucking hate that movie like so much, but I understand it's a very good movie and it's very well made, but I fucking hate it. So
yeah. I get it. I just watched Gladiator 2 last night. And I love Ridley Scott. I've always been a fan of all his movies. And I hate to say that this is probably my least favorite of Scott's movies, but I appreciate it. There's a lot of interesting decisions made.
There's sharks in it, right?
There are sharks.
I'm gonna see it. I can't help
in
myself.
the arena. Yeah. And it's like
This takes
I
place in ancient Rome,
Yes.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And there's sharks.
It's like 700, 200 AD, maybe. I forgot. But, and I actually, this is how much, last night, I was a late night show and I got home, it was like 1 a.m. and I was Googling, like, do they have sharks? Like great white sharks in the arena and like during gladiator times? They do not. They're, Ridley, and I read an interview because it like linked directly to Ridley Scott's Gladiator 2, my search terms. And like Ridley's like, hey, people look at the, Colosseum and they're like, how the fuck did they build that during this time period? Why not put sharks and question how the fuck do they get a shark in there? So I appreciate it more and more. I'm learning about it, but again, all my ratings are subjective on Letterboxd.
I have so many questions. Like, how did they get the shark there? Because Rome is not right by the ocean.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think there were maybe some great floods during.
Okay, all right. Let's get back to business here.
Okay, yeah, let's get back to Eugenio Martin. I watched The Fourth Victim from 1971, starring Carol Baker and Michael Craig. Have you seen this?
I watched it last night.
Did you?
I enjoyed it very much.
I did too. It's about a man who, in the time span of about 3 years, had 3 wives, and they all end up dead. I loved the opening of this movie where it's the third wife drowns and then the husband comes down, drags her upstairs, changes her clothing, calls the family doctor who says on her death certificate that she died of an overdose. So something is obviously up. And then like the next 15 or so minutes, it becomes like this courtroom drama where he's trying to prove his innocence and he's found innocent. But I loved how the mystery's like immediately established. Is he killing his wives for their life insurance? So it's I don't know. I really enjoy this. And then it turns to Carol Baker, who's his new neighbor, and she kind of inserts herself into this inheritance and almost forces this marriage.
Yeah.
As the fourth victim, like whoever that might be.
Yeah. You know who could have gotten a conviction for that husband?
Who's that?
Michael Moriarty.
Yes.
He could have done it.
100%. He would have pulled that off. I thought it got a little too ambitious towards the end as it kind of tries to unravel all its knots.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
And the lead detective, I found him a little bit of a comedic annoyance. Overall, I really liked it. It was this kind of, cool little giallo-esque thriller, has a wild original score, and Carol Baker is just gorgeous in everything she said. But that was one of my favorite watches from Martin's filmography. I also watched The Bounty Killer from 1966.
I wanted to watch that with Tomas Milian, yeah?
This is his, from what I read, this is his first.
Wait, did I see? I've seen this. Hang on.
You might have.
I think I have.
It's also known as The Ugly Ones.
Yes, I have seen it. Thank you.
This was his first Western, his first Euro Western.
Oh, okay.
So, and obviously we know that he worked with Corbucci a lot and, kind of ruled the spaghetti Western scene. So in that regard, I really liked it. But it's like a basic Western plot. Milian's character escapes from prison and a bounty hunter is after him. He goes back to his lover in the town that he's from. And they all like him because he was poor like them at one point. But as the bounty hunter shows up and warns them, like, this guy is a killer through and through. He doesn't care about anybody. You guys need to stop being his friend, which they all start to find out because he starts being completely corrupt as he captures the bounty hunter, who's played by Richard Weiler. And he begins torturing him and just showing the people how cruel he actually is. And it's good. It's really, I don't know. It kind of portrays like how far like loyalty will get you towards, somebody you like or something. Mm-hmm. I feel like some supporters of certain political figures could kind of watch this and read into it, but I will not get political. The cinematography is amazing by Enzo Barboni, who did Django, The Hellbenders,
Oh, okay.
Nightmare Castle, and Stelvio Cipriani did the original score. Bay of Blood, Pieces, great stuff. I really enjoyed this one. It's on Tubi right now. And then Pancho Villa. I watched Pancho Villa from 1972, which Martin wrote and directed. It stars Telly Savalas as Pancho.
Oh, that's a decision.
Also has Clint Walker, Anne Francis, Chuck Connors. Savalas is obviously bald, very bald man.
Mm-hmm.
So I loved in the first 2 minutes, he's in a cage on a train being transported to like a prison. And the general has a soldier who's shaving Pancho's head in this cage to kind of humiliate him and show him like, this is the convict you truly are. So that's like how it sets up why he's bald, which I thought was really funny.
Okay.
It looks great. The cast is awesome. But the script is just a mess and it's just boring. Like it tries to be really funny, but it never really lands at all for me personally. Feels like a cartoon that just keeps repeating the same joke.
Okay.
Yeah, it does have great stunt work, and the ending is great because there is a end song that Telly Savalas himself sings.
Oh.
So, and he's actually under the letterbox credits as songs. Telly Savalas. I'm like, okay, I have to watch this. It's hard to recommend, though, that one. Okay, another one I watched, Bad Man's River from 1971, another Western starring Lee Van Cleef, who can do no wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He's a bank robber, starts off with him stealing a ton of money from a bank with his posse, and they split up. He marries a woman who basically marries him.
Is this one that also has James Mason in it?
Yeah. And yeah, it also has Gianni Garco, Sartana himself.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about her because she's in A Candle for the Devil. Lone Fleming, who I watched an interview with Eugenio, and he called her Lonnie. So I will probably call her Lonnie Fleming.
Okay.
Because he himself said it, and they were married. They were together. They were a couple. She's in it. She plays this tough woman named Conchita. Another movie that has really catchy theme songs. Yeah, the songs were by a British prog rock band called Jade Warrior, which I found very interesting.
Okay.
But Pancho Villa it's boring. It's hard for me to recommend this one.
Okay.
But yeah, overall, I really liked all of Martin's films. They're all entertaining. Fourth Victim I loved. A Candle for the Devil I loved. Bounty Killer I loved. And then like the other ones are just okay for the most part.
So you didn't ruin your run by watching Return of the Poltergeist, aka Supernatural.
I haven't. No,
it has the greatest poster ever.
It does. Did you watch it?
No,
I couldn't find it
because everyone has really bad reviews of it, and they all say great poster, but this movie honks. So I was gonna download it, and then I saw the reviews and especially from a few of our listeners, and I was like, I'm not in a rush to see that. I want to keep the positive memory in my mind of the werewolf doing whatever he's doing on that poster.
Yeah, I need to pull this poster up here real quick because I feel like the first time I looked at it, it reminds me like the outfit, like just from the far, it looked like, is his name Bosk from Star Wars, the bounty hunter?
Yeah.
It looked like Bosk. Like I was like, this.
Yeah.
It just looks like something that would be in the Bleeding Skull catalog too.
Yeah.
Which I see that they do have a review on. But no, I will watch this when I'm sure it'll get a release. I hope it's some point.
It's coming, I'm sure.
There was another movie that he did called Hypnosis from 1962 that I found a copy, but it was the ratio was like the screen was cut in half, and you could tell that right away from the opening credits. So I didn't give it a chance.
Yeah, I had that on the short list for the podcast, and the same. I found that version. I was like, nope, not watching that. So
yeah, because that one looks really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Martin, I think you mentioned Avi Nesher and the Doppelganger, that he's like a king of genres, and I could see that from just the filmography with Eugenio. Yeah, he passed away at the ripe old age of 97 last year.
Oh,
in January 2023. There is a short 148-page biography out there on him called Eugenio Martin, an author for all genres, by Carlos Aguilar and Anita Haas, which seems like an interesting book. I've read through some of their available interviews that I have that I'll take note on later on. Okay, and then another cast member or crew member, the composer, the credited composer here is Antonio Perez Olay. He's composed some nice original scores, including The Blood Spattered Bride, which was a No Rules November past.
It was, yeah.
He also did The Violent Bloodbath. But in the commentary with Thompson and Howarth, I found that the majority of the music in A Candle for the Devil is mostly library music, pulled from the sound library, including the opening number over the credits, which is called Spanish Autumn by Hans Hader, which I'll close this episode out with.
Okay.
I mean, I will. I'm going to sing it.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, a lot of the music you hear and you find in A Candle for the Devil, a lot of music you'd find like in Paul Naschy films. It's just sound library stuff. A lot of stuff you might hear in pornos too.
Hey, there you go.
There you go. Any other crew members you wanted to talk about? Mm-hmm. So the cast, I'm just going to hit on the key players here because there are a lot of cast members.
There's a lot, yeah.
Even the small roles. And there are a lot of faces you recognize, especially, I guess, if you're familiar with Spanish horror films.
Yeah, I mean, because you mentioned like the score, he did Blood Spattered Bride. There's Montserrat Julio, who played Beatriz. She was in Blood Spattered Bride. She was the servant in that. So, yeah,
I mean, a lot of these faces you see in Paul Naschy movies, and like almost everybody seems to have a tie-in to like the Blind Dead collection. So many people are popping up in those movies.
Yeah,
Armando de Osorio. But that's kind of what's filmed. It reminded me of watching Hammer horror films from the 60s and 70s. You see so many recognizable faces.
Yeah.
And that kind of happens with Spanish horrors during the 70s. But first, we have Spanish actress Aurora Bautista, who plays Marta. She's the evil or more religious fanatic of the two sisters. Bautista was a very well-known actress in Spain, mostly playing dramatic roles. So A Candle for the Devil, when she decided to do this part, where she gets naked a lot and she's covered in blood, it's kind of it was a shocking change for not only her career, but like for the audience that knew her well from all her dramatic roles. I did watch one of her movies from 1953. I think I read she started acting like in the late 40s. So at this point, she's an established actress. But I watched something in 1953 called Condenados, or The Condemned Ones. And this is a beautiful black and white Spanish drama about a young woman who's working on a large farm, all on her own because her husband is in prison for a murder that he committed out of a jealous rage over her. And she hires this young man to help her on the farm, and he starts falling for her. The crops begin to flourish. They hire a bunch of men. It becomes a successful farm, and then the husband is released from prison 5 years later, and shit really hits the fan. Really loved this one. I think it was on YouTube. Just a great 1950s melodrama, and Aurora Bautista is amazing in it. It gets really dark at the end. Highly recommend it. And then I watched another one of her films called The Doll of Satan from 1969. Oh. Have you seen this? It has a cool poster.
Is it Satan's Baby Doll? Is that the same?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's also known as. But yeah, this is an Italian horror. It's another example of a movie that gives away so much during the opening credits, which I always find funny. Basic plot: head of a family dies, and there's a young niece that goes to the castle for the will reading, and then the governess and caretaker want in on the money, and a lot of people end up dead during the will reading, dying around the house. Bautista plays an artist around town who seemingly kind of inserts herself into this inheritance for unknown reason until the very end when it's revealed, which is very silly and kind of worth sticking around for.
Okay.
It's okay. It's interesting, but I think Aurora Bautista is amazing in this movie as Marta. Mm-hmm. Both the sisters are so good. And the other sister is played by Esperanza Roy Fuentes, who went by Esperanza Roy for her acting credits. She plays Veronica, the more sympathetic of the sisters. I just watched a random film. I picked one from her filmography. I couldn't find a lot that were streaming, but I watched a Jess Franco film called X312, Flight to Hell from 1971.
Okay.
The premise was interesting, about a diamond smuggler who's on a plane that everybody knows about. So the plane is hijacked due to a man wanting to steal the diamonds, mm-hmm. and it crashes in the Amazon. and everybody is trying to survive on their own, but at the same time also trying to steal the diamonds.
Okay.
Very silly.
All right.
And Esperanza Roy plays a wealthy passenger on the airplane. There's this funny scene of her splashing around in the Amazon and forest where they're kind of stuck. And there's a waterfall, and she's completely naked and just splashing around in the most unrealistic, happy way. Great scene, by the way. Probably the best scene of the movie. It does have Howard Vernon in it, who's one of our favorites.
Of course, yeah.
He plays a revolutionary named Pedro.
Okay.
Paul Muller's in it. Eduardo Sanchez, he's kind of like the star of this film. He plays a slimy kind of, he's really after the diamonds, but he's a flight attendant who all the ladies love for some reason.
Yeah.
He's able to sleep with everybody. This one's hard for me to recommend, by the way.
Yeah. I think just stick with the Blind Dead movies, because the Attack of the Blind Dead.
Yeah, she was in it.
I think that I'd have to rewatch them. It's been a while, but I feel like that one was my favorite of the series, which is like a hot take apparently, because everyone always just says the first one. But the second one, it was made in 1973, so it's before Jaws, but it is technically a proto-Jaws movie because it's all about like, oh, there's a town celebration. We can't tell them about the fucking blind dead and, trying to take care of that. So, yeah, I like it for that reason. Anything that's like Jaws adjacent, even if it was before Jaws, I love it.
Yeah, it's funny in the Howarth and Thompson commentary for A Candle for the Devil, they bring up the Blind Dead collection quite a bit, obviously, because there's so many ties into it. And they both agreed that the fourth one is their favorite. Really? Because, and Troy's main reason was because when the fourth one was made, the Spanish censorship had kind of lacked, they eased off some of the censoring. Yeah. And they didn't allow, in the first three, he said the first three are very rapey, is what he said, because what was odd is like the Spanish censorship like allowed like sex, but only in cases of rape, like if that worked out. And he's on the fourth one, they kind of allow natural relationships like in sex to happen. He's all, and I do like that. I do like it for that reason. Okay. So something to think about.
I don't know what that says about me then. Shit.
Yeah, no, I mean, given the times, the seven, you're going to expect a rape scene. Like that's what, I hate to say it, but that's what I've come to.
It's the reality of cinema at that time. I know.
Okay, next we have British actor Judy Geeson, she's top billing in this, playing Laura, the sister of the sunbathing woman who is immediately killed. Mm-hmm. She is the big name here for the foreign market, obviously. In an interview, she indicated that Candle was not the happiest of shooting experiences for her. She was told that it would be shot in English when she was hired, but when shooting began, apparently Esperanza Roy was like, we're shooting this. I'm doing it in Spanish. And the whole cast kind of took like, yeah, I'm with Esperanza. So it made it for a tough atmosphere for Geeson. And she claimed that she was forced to use rudimentary Spanish to follow along, or she was forced to learn it. But I don't know how true that is. I feel like somebody could just told her like, when her line was.
Just say your line. Point. Like, why do you need to know what they're saying? Like, if you have a script that's in English, right? Then, sorry, I'm not trying to like,
Well, when I was watching it too, there's scenes you can tell. Obviously, it's dubbed, but you can see where Esperanza and Batista are speaking English. So maybe they attempted it at first, and they're like, "This isn't working."
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's true. I could tell like when it was being dubbed, like. Okay, they're clearly speaking Spanish. Right. But then in other scenes, I was like, no, they're speaking English. Yeah, so,
that's what I saw too.
Okay.
And Martine said he really liked Geeson, but in an interview, he said that she thought that she might have been too childlike and polite in the role, which I thought was kind of perfect.
I think it works for the...
Yeah, because the sisters immediately like her because she is so kind of proper. And apparently that's how she is obviously in real life. All the roles, the movies that I've seen her in, she's always extremely polite, like most British people are.
Well, she's not in
Seminoid?
That and To Sir with Love, because those are all like the ruffian kids, and they're all just... That movie's great, but she was also in the sequel, which I didn't even know existed. There's To Sir with Love 2.
Really? Yeah. I had no idea.
Yeah. I was like, and it was years later, and I love you, Sydney, but I'm not watching that.
She did. She became a pretty big star from that role in 1967. She was in 10 Rillington Place, that awesome true crime thriller.
Yeah.
She mostly worked in TV. She's still acting right now, but she worked a lot in television, which is what she's kind of doing nowadays. More recently, she was in a couple of Rob Zombie films.
Poor thing.
Lords of Salem and 31.
So you know what? Everyone needs a paycheck. It's all right. It's all right.
I mean, that brought her out. Maybe it was for pay reasons, but she had like a 9-year absence of acting, and then she came back for like Lords of Salem. I'm like, okay, Rob, work your magic.
Good for her. I mean, he gave jobs to lots of people like Sid Haig and Karen Black and whatever. I don't fault him for like who he casts. I just fucking hate his writing.
Yeah, Lords of Salem, I didn't like too much. I never watched 31. I did like House of a Thousand Corpses. Yeah. That's always
Get out. Get out.
Anyways, I did watch some of Judy Geeson's films. And I say Geeson. I don't know if it's Geeson or I think it's Geeson. But if I'm mispronouncing that, sorry. I'll just call her Eugenio. Geeson. I watched a movie it had on my watch list for years, Fear in the Night from 1972. Mm-hmm. This was directed by Hammer Pro Jimmy Sangster, who directed Lust for a Vampire, The Horror of Frankenstein. But he wrote dozens of Hammer films, like a lot of the Draculas and Frankensteins. So I was really excited to watch this. It also stars Peter Cushing, who obviously, he's amazing in it because he has a mustache and he has a nervous tick.
Oh.
It's like a twitching eye. Very good. Joan Collins is in it. Ralph Bates from Dr. Jekyll and Sister
You're building
Hyde.
it up quite a bit. I feel like there's going to be a letdown coming.
No, I liked it. Right. I mean, right away, it had these great fall winter vibes. I was into it. It leans, I don't know if this would turn you off, but again, this is early 70s.
Comedy?
No, it leans into a woman's trauma real hard.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So she's unable to get on with her life after this physical assault that she experienced. She's married to Ralph Bates, who he takes on a job at a university where Peter Cushing plays the headmaster. Mm-hmm. And they move into this little cottage on the university grounds. And it seems that the assaulter followed them. You just don't know who it is and what's happening. But yeah, you keep getting like, why are these characters acting so stupid? Like you're watching it and right away you're like, this isn't realistic at all, but it actually all kind of makes sense at the end. It's really well done. Of course, Peter Cushing's scenes are so engrossing. He plays like this humorless headmaster. He's getting lost in every passionate thing that he's saying out loud. And you're like so captivated by everything. Joan Collins is his wife in it, and she kind of steals the show.
Oh,
it's really good.
Okay.
Fear in the Night. I think it was like on YouTube.
Okay.
And I had never seen Inseminoid that I watched from 1981, which is a total, starring Judy Geeson. It's a British Hong Kong co-production financed by Run Shaw. Yeah. Which is interesting, but total British alien ripoff, expedition where an alien life form of sorts comes onto board the ship. Yeah, there's this one scene. I mean, the cast are like stiff as a board. They're terrible actors, except for Geeson, who just she's freaking the fuck out all like the whole fucking show because she gets infested by this alien life form. She has this birth scene where she gives birth. That's just the best, like worth the price of admission. It's hard to say like she saved the movie because this is a tough one to recommend as well, but she is excellent in it. If there's any reason to watch it, it's because of her. But yeah, she's a very polite character in everything I've watched. I'm kind of surprised she didn't get into the giallo craze. Like she kind of has a face and persona that she could have been in some sort of Italian. Yeah,
I think she looks too much. She reminded me a lot of Mimsy Farmer, and I think because the giallo genre already had Mimsy Farmer, they're like, no, we're full up on cute blondes. Yeah. We're good. Thanks.
That makes sense, actually. I did learn she had a younger sister who's also an actress, Sally Geeson. She mostly does British television, but she did work with Vincent Price in 2 horror films, The Oblong Box and Cry of the Banshee.
Oh, okay.
I kind of want to watch those again to see if they look the same. But, okay, the last cast member I want to bring up is who I've already brought up, Lone, or as Eugenio says, Lonnie Fleming. She plays Helen Miller, the young kind of brash tourist who shows up, causing all the men to fall off their bikes. Mm-hmm. Like I said, she was married to Eugenio Martin, the director and writer. They were engaged by the time filming began here in Candle for the Devil. They met on his film The Fourth Victim in 1971, where she had a small part. And in an interview with her from that book that I had mentioned earlier, she was actually planning to quit acting when they met on The Fourth Victim. But Eugenio was like, no, you're great. Stick around. She's a Danish actress, so she was going to move back home and figure something else out. But he convinced her to stick around and keep acting. And she was in most of his films. She was in Tombs of the Blind Dead, and then Aldi pops up as a different character in the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
She was also in The Possessed or Demon Witch Child, another film we covered. But yeah, she has a great, like if you look at her filmography, she's in a lot of kind of bangers, a lot of good horrors from all countries, even a lot of US films.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that anybody else on the cast you wanted to talk about?
No, just some like soft recommendations from a few other people, like Victor Barrera or Eduardo, the guy who she kind of teams up with and pretends they're her husband. I think he's credited as Vic Winter at the beginning, but he's in The Folds of the Flesh, Hunchback of the Morgue, Horror Rises from the Tomb, Count Dracula's Great Love. Recommend all of those. Blanca Estrada, who played Norma. She's in a John Saxon movie called Fight to the Death. Now, I don't remember this movie at all, but I have a small poster for it with a shirtless John Saxon hanging above the doorway to my bedroom.
Hell yeah.
And then Fernando Hilbeck, I think he's like the mayor or something maybe in this. I can't remember, but he's in Verhoeven's Flesh and Blood. Have you ever seen that?
Mm-mm.
Oh my God. So good. Rutger Hauer, Jennifer Jason Leigh. They're flinging plague riddled flesh over the walls of castles and shit. It's great.
Holy shit. It's on Prime.
Everyone check out Verhoeven's Flesh and Blood if you're missing that in his filmography.
And Hilbeck was also in The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue.
Yes.
So a lot of good stuff. Yeah. And Blanca Estrada has another tie-in for the Blind Dead collection. Yeah, I know this cast is just kind of stacked. It's great. I think everybody does a really good job.
Yeah, but I do. So I initially thought that Laura or Judy Geeson's character was going to be the main one. Like she's going to show up and we're going to follow her.
Right.
But I was not that like there was anything wrong with that. I think she's great at this role, but I was more interested in following the sisters. So I'm glad that it stayed focused on them for the most part.
100%. Yeah. This is their movie. Geeson might have top billing because of like foreign market and like pull, but her character is very boring.
Yeah.
Incredibly boring. I mean, even like the other tourists, like the young mother and, Lonnie Fleming, their characters stand out much more and they're short, they don't have as much of a focus on as Geeson. But yeah, that's actually one thing I respect about this movie is that it's so like female character driven because all the men are just completely like secondary. Like I think the most important male character is the newborn baby in this.
Yeah.
Like the boyfriend, Winter or the actor, he's completely like worthless at this point. Like I'm kind of glad that he was kind of knocked off late at the end when he pops up. Yeah, no, that's something I did like. I love the relationship between the sisters. Do you have a favorite sister of the two?
I mean, Marta goes hard.
Yeah.
But they both what I love about them is like they both have this repressed energy about them, so that makes them that much more compelling. You mentioned they're both very pious, but they are way too horny to be running a hotel. They need to get thee to a nunnery, Marta and Veronica, because
I mean, Veronica's getting her fix.
She is, but like, yeah, like they need Marta definitely needs an outlet because my favorite scene, I think one of my favorite scenes in this movie is after she sees all the boys playing in the lake. Sorry, not trigger warning, but content warning. There's a naked young little boy in the playing in the lake. After she's there, she's running through these thick reeds, like she's whipping herself.
Yes.
And she's enjoying it. And I'm like, oh, Marta, you got some stuff you got to work out here. And And then like we see her like after that, she's, dressing up and like becoming sort of like hypersexualized, but she also is punishing others for her own feelings. And so I think she's a little bit more complicated. I think Veronica realizes that like she's horny. I'm going to go get this taken care of, but she's still very, very shy about it. Like she won't let her boyfriend see her naked
Right.
in the middle of the day when she goes over there to have sex. I'm like, you know what you're here for, right?
And what's interesting is that whole dynamic. Like I love the scene of her walking to her young lover's house and she's kind of side-eyeing. She has a smile, kind of a smile, like looking at all the villagers like, hi, making sure that they're not really following her.
Yeah.
And then when she gets there, she's obviously kind of very vulnerable. She does become, she's a sympathetic character, but she's not blameless. Like she drives Marta. She helps Marta become who she is.
She does. Yeah. Like they're both equally guilty here, especially when it comes to murdering all these young women. We think she's, more sympathetic in the beginning because Marta is the one who pushed her down. And then Marta is saying, oh, this is divine intervention or divine punishment. We are the hand of justice or whatever she said. And Veronica doesn't seem to be on board with that. She's like, no, this is just an accident. But by the end, when Marta is being attacked by someone, she comes up from behind and she fucking clubs her right over the head. And she's right there with her.
Yeah. And I like how they kind of bond. And what's kind of sad in Veronica's situation too, is she's having this kind of secret, it's not an affair, but just secret love relationship with this young boy. And if Marta found out, she would probably murder her sister because of, that's kind of like what all the floozies in the inn are doing. They're kind of like, they shouldn't be having sex out of wedlock.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be.
You're sunbathing topless. You're having a child out of marriage. You don't know who the son or who the father is. My favorite though, is when the sister who is sunbathing on top, I don't know if I heard it right. I rewound it on the rewatch. I think she called her a hussy.
She does call her hussy.
That is my favorite insult. I love when you call I use that word all the time, like not in public.
This isn't a whorehouse. It's like she's just sitting there sunbathing.
I know.
Yeah, no, but the thing is, I think again, like this is the oppressed Franco era, like
sure.
And they walk out on the roof and they see a bunch of young children watching this so it's all a perception thing with these two women. And I think that's why when I think about the ending, which we'll get to, but at first I didn't like the ending, but the more I think about it is their whole life is built on perception of the community and what people think of them. So the ending I think is very clever and it works really well. The whole, here we go, the curtain's down, here's how they really are. I think this is a ballsy movie for the time for Eugenio Martin to make, because he had made Horror Express, which was, none of his movies were very successful, but Horror Express had the star power of Cushing and Christopher Lee, and it was a success in Spanish cinema. So to shift gears and obviously piss off audiences with something like this that's so kind of controversial, I have much respect for this decision, because it seems like whenever you attack like the influence of the church, even nowadays, I mean, you're going to get protesters or some sort of controversy, which I think a lot of filmmakers do purposefully. But I think he does a really good job. I mean, early Spain, 1971, you kind of attack the church, you kind of attack the oppression of like religious stuff. And it's, I don't know, some fanatics watching this, I wonder at the time if they would like cheer on the sisters and be like, yes, I mean, these people absolutely deserve what's coming to them.
Yeah.
And that's a terrifying thought. Like, I haven't seen it yet, but there's that new movie, The Heretic, which I heard is actually getting it's called Heretic with Hugh Grant. That it makes you think a lot of like apparently the very religious would probably hate it, but at the same time, they could probably champion what's happening. I don't know.
I'll see it if there's a dead kid. I've had my fill of new horror movies this year. I'm good.
Yeah, and also at the same time during this era, I had said that a lot of tourists didn't want to support like a fascist country, and they didn't want to go to Spain during this time. And a lot of the people living in Spain, they didn't want to see these sexually kind of driven, free living tourists coming to their small towns. And I guess everybody kind of has like this feeling when they've like taken root in their city, like, don't California my Texas. It's people become very passionate about this.
That is an actual bumper sticker here, by the
Don't
way.
California my Texas.
Yeah.
It's stupid. But yeah, I love this scene where it's also another funky, like, library tune where there's a bus that pulls up and all these tourists start kind of filing out. So it seems to be a focus on just the change in the time of Spain during that moment, like religious oppression, as well as tourism and free living and allowing, women to just like travel on their own and go where they want.
Sure. I think that there's definitely some exaggeration, though, with the women that show up. So Hot Pants is clearly like, she shows up, she's just being rude and just dropping her stuff off and like, oh, I called ahead, here's my bag, I'm going to the swimming pool, bye, like being completely discourteous. And the woman with the baby, like, telling she is actually married even though they're separated, and saying something to a random stranger about like, oh, I wish I knew, like, why do you even need to say that? So I think there's like an element of exaggeration so that we are on the side of the sisters murdering them.
Yeah, I mean, from time to time, especially when Hot Pants, Lonnie Fleming, goes back to the end and starts taunting Marta, ripping her shirt off. And like, and you're almost like, yeah, like, kill her. She deserves that.
Yep.
But obviously nobody deserves to be murdered for these type of actions. But yeah, that's what I think Martine plays so well, is you do kind of, I don't know, you could see both sides of the story, both sides of each character.
I mean, you do deserve it if you're sunbathing topless like a hussy. I'm just saying.
Yeah, this ain't no whorehouse. I did read in an interview that was pretty interesting. Like, I already mentioned all the different cut versions out there. It happened at Nightmare End. Stay away from it. So Eugenio said that the film went to Cannes Film Festival before it passed through Spanish censorship. It was approved to, go to Cannes. And obviously it played very well. People loved it. And when he got back to Spain, that's when the censors took a look at it and they're like, holy shit, you need to cut all this stuff. And it became it happened at Nightmare Inn. And all the buyers and interested production companies just totally bowed out. So it was a complete flop. The censorship was obviously hardcore on this film. Like, when you look at the cut version, there's nothing, it's not even entertaining, like, to watch. So
you said it's like 15 minutes shorter too, or something.
Yeah,
like that, right? Yeah, that's insane. It's
crazy, and it wasn't until fairly recent that this version that we're seeing, that's on Visual Ventures and the '88 films, was released. So that's why I think everybody should see the proper version if they feel like they haven't seen the version we're talking about. Because to me, you haven't seen the film. So yeah, this isn't like a basic slasher. So I was thinking how the formula of big time American slashers, like, Jason and stuff, they all go after these horny kids, kind of like campers or young teenagers. But this one is more like the killers are here killing because of these loose morals of their victims. They're insane, but they're normal in terms of the times it's happening. I don't know. It feels like it's a slasher film in that regard.
I remember thinking that in the middle of it too. I'm like, oh, we're killing girls with loose morals. All right, we're proto slasher territory.
Right, yeah. And it's a location specific horror too. Like a lot of like Camp Crystal Lake and stuff like that. Yeah, and the kills in this are pretty damn brutal. That's why I think watching this version is obviously the only way to do it.
Yeah.
The woman that pushed down the stairs in the beginning, the sunbathing woman, and slashing her throat on the stained glass window, that's really great. Helen getting stabbed to death by both sisters, that one's really scary, because I think that's when Veronica first partakes and stabs her in the back. But then Norma, the young mother, that's an unsettling one, because she's getting murdered while they're holding her newborn baby, like up to her face. Which is very, and the kills, like the blood and the dead bodies, it reminded me of, and I might have said this during the Horror Gives Back episode, but it was very like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It looked real. Like there was something very grisly and gross about the whole thing. Like when I think of movies like Henry too, like
Mhm.
the bodies just look legit. Like
Yeah.
they look dead.
After they're killed, though, we're led to believe, because they keep showing the fire in the kitchen. So we're led to believe that, and then they keep showing them serving food and all, oh, this, did you do something different? This tastes great. So there's a hint of cannibalism in this.
Right.
There's also, a indication that they're being burned in the fire. But at one point, they only show the mother, her clothes being thrown in there. Later, I know we're sort of jumping to the ending, though. We get to the giant wine jugs. I don't know what they're called. I'm sure there's a technical term for them. Some wine person can school me on that. But these giant wine jugs in the basement where the bodies are, or at least parts of them. So were they serving the meat?
I don't know.
Are we not are we just left to guess?
Yeah, that is one thing I do respect about this is that's the lingering mystery, right? Because these women are killed and you never see what happens with the body. You kind of assume because of like those what you just pointed out. But and you don't really get a chance to kind of sit back and say, where are they? Where are the bodies? Like, what are they doing? And then the big kind of Sweeney Todd reveal of the eyeball. But to me, I think they do throw them in those big wine vats, those wine jugs, the bodies. And I love that scene too, because you see like decomposing flesh, like on the top of the water and stuff. But are they just deteriorating in the wine? But the lady eats an eyeball, or did that come from her glass? Because
there was a mix up with maybe she was saying like we use this one for marinating something or something like that, and she mixed up the jugs, and so maybe Veronica had taken some wine from the body jug, whatever we're going to call it, and then the eyeball got in there, and then it was part of the marinade or something like that. So maybe they were just hiding them in there and just like saying, okay, don't ever use this one. We're only using these two other big wine jugs over here. But Veronica did it by accident, and that's how the eyeball ended up in there. So maybe there wasn't cannibalism.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
I'm fine not knowing.
Yeah, in most Spanish films too, like Howard had pointed out on the commentary that there's a lot of animal mutilation in a lot of movies. Like what is it called? The Bell from Hell, the Cannibal, Week of the Cannibal, or is that what it's called? Cannibal Man?
Cannibal Man.
There's a lot of slaughtering of animals, and this doesn't really have it, but you do have like severed lamb's heads and stuff, and there's a lot of blood and the way they're chopping meat on it. So again, it just kind of makes you think the whole time. If you take a minute to think about where these bodies are, you just assume that they're being fed to the people at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like how the mystery is still.
Yeah, no, I don't necessarily need to have an answer. I'm just bringing it up because I'm sure like there might be other people who watched it that were asking the same questions.
Yeah, and I love too where the eyeball's taken to like the forensic office, and then like they peel off the fake eyelash, and you're like, oh, it's the poor Helen.
Yeah, I do. I like how they don't show what it is until
the guy kind of pockets it.
Yeah, and you're so for like a while you're like, wait, what did they find? Was it a finger? Was it what was it? And I love that. Yeah, I love that it was an eyeball with the fake eyelash on there, because then it comes back to that scene where Marta is going through her things and finds the fake eyelashes, and this whole all these things that hussies do to glam themselves up, and
as I was watching this too, I kept thinking, is this in House of Psychotic Women, Janice's book? And she does discuss about, where she discusses female madness in horror cinema, and she does cover A Candle for the Devil a little bit. She writes that there is no shortage of split personality or double life in horror films, and she cites A Candle for the Devil as an example, along with Sisters and Footprints, saying that between these two opposing forces, the ideal self versus the actual self is violence. Often the violence is perceived as nonsensical or arbitrary, when in fact, like any battle, it's strategic. But the strategy is unconscious. And there is a goal, some type of fulfillment we seek, And because on a surface level, we may not be comfortable with what our goal, our brains use different tactics to navigate our emotional obstacles to reach that goal in one way or another. The inability to recognize this is what creates the perception of craziness. So Marta's like fixated on losing her fiance to a younger woman.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the same time, she's deeply religious, which we've already hinted on, pointed out. And perhaps when I started thinking about like she turned to religion, maybe she turned to religion after he left, or, for the younger woman, her fiance. And she left for maybe guidance and acceptance, like in this religious community. And this turned her to evil, like hating young women. And when she accidentally kills one of those women who they essentially represent the woman who took her husband, she gives reason to it, calling it the will of God. And this kind of becomes her goal in life. Like once she kind of unleashes this first murder, she realizes I'm the hand of God, but in the back of her mind, she has like this, the goal's kind of always subconsciously been there of just kind of getting revenge of how she feels and how not heartbroken she is, but how terrible, I guess, men can be and women can be stealing men. I don't know.
Yeah, given that this is Spain, I think it's safe to say that she probably had religion in her life prior to her husband leaving her for a younger woman. But when she lost that, she turned to it that much more, I don't know, severely, if you will, and embraced it that much more and its tenets and really was like viewed anyone who did not follow those as a sinner that needed to be punished, that needed her hand of justice. So I think it definitely that event had an impact on her in that way. But I don't think she was completely I don't think she was atheist or anything prior to that.
Right.
I think she definitely had it in her life and she just like turned to it that much more after the fact.
Yeah. And then her sister Veronica, she's willing to participate because she's also kind of locked in this frustrating life of like this fear of judgment and oppression of having this young lover. So she kind of, she partakes in all these murders that Marta kind of instigate.
Yeah.
So again, I love their relationship, how they stick it out. They stick together to the end. In most cases where there's this dysfunctional relationship, it kind of deteriorates as like a movie moves along. But by the end, they're like 100% together.
Yeah.
There's this awesome scene where Judy Geeson is running. She's tied up. It's at the very end. And she's trying to unlock the doors, but she can't. She looks up at the stairway and they're both standing just side by side, like one entity, like moving together. Yeah, like kind of floating down like as this one killer. But yeah, I think that's why I like the end so much. They're in it together. And like I said, they kind of reveal to the community their true self. And the whole movie is about, I don't know, their own perception of themselves and how they think they're doing the will of God and and what the community thinks of them. So the ending I like more and more when I keep thinking about it.
Speaking of the community, now I do love a good angry mob in a movie.
Yeah.
In a movie, not in real life, because... Question: why do angry mobs in movies always move so slowly? Because like tension and all, right. But it's like, someone's a killer, where this person is. Like every time there's an angry mob, they know, oh shit, this person, whether it's like Frankenstein's monster, the sisters here, like whoever, they're just like slowly moving. I'm like, move it along.
It's scary. If I'm in the front of the line of the mob, I'm going to be taking my time because I'm like, I don't want to see this monster first. So I'm slowing everybody down. And I feel like everybody's like, should I be doing this? Like, am I going to get killed? Maybe that's like in the back of their minds. And that's why they're moving so slow.
All right. Yeah. I get it. Like if the front's moving slow, you got to keep in line with that.
But obviously it's retention. Like you're right.
I know, but I'm also like, people, you get to the thing. Like there's no sense of urgency there's never any sense of urgency with angry mobs. Get to the chopper.
Yeah, no, and this is a very slow moving mob down. And it looks like it's like a straight shot to their house. They're just taking their time.
Yeah. They're like, let's take a stroll. Like, let's stop and get some tapas. And yeah.
I love it. But yeah, no, I do like the pull down the curtain. Judy Geeson is just looking straight into the camera with tears in her eyes. Credits roll.
Yep.
And the sisters are behind them looking all hot with blood all over them. Torn blouses. I could watch that all day. I'm sorry. Like those Aurora Bautista and Esperanza Roy, I was a little upset that I couldn't find more of their movies streaming because they are so captivating in this movie and I love it.
Yeah, they're great.
So yeah, that is, you got any other thoughts? Any favorite moments that we didn't talk about?
No, I think we got all the ones I wanted to. Nope, I'm good.
I didn't mention this, but I love it when Lonnie Fleming as Helene jumps on the donkey and like rides to a bar. I love that scene. She's just taking control of the whole town.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do double features.
Oh, this was okay. So I thought of a lot of different directions that you could go. The first one that popped into my head was The Sister of Ursula from 1978, directed by Enzo Milioni. While searching for their estranged mother, there's these two sisters, Dagmar and Ursula, and they end up at this seaside hotel. And at the same time, there's a killer who's murdering promiscuous women in the area. So, but I think it's, even though we are focused on the sisters, I think it's still a little bit too similar. But if you're looking for something like this, then The Sister of Ursula would be good. I think it was on Tubi, and Shameless, I think, has a DVD out of it. I also thought that Tobe Hooper's Eaten Alive from 1976 could work.
That's good.
Frailty would be another one, Hand of Justice.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I had this craving for Farmer Vincent's fritters. So I went with Motel Hell from 1980.
Nice.
Farmer Vincent Smith and his sister Ida, they run a motel attached to a farm, and they capture unsuspecting travelers, not necessarily, hussies and promiscuous folks, but they bury them alive and fatten them up and then harvest them and make their own little snacks for folks. So I thought like a, hotel focused one would be, this would balance it out a little bit more because this is, more of a fun one.
I like it.
Very different. What about you?
So I did want to mention Troy Howarth and Nathaniel Thompson's. They had mentioned, like, if you're thinking of a Don't Go on Holiday to Europe film, they mentioned And Soon the Darkness.
Okay, yeah,
which was your double feature pick for Who Can Kill a Child, which they also mentioned.
Oh, okay.
So those could be fun, I think. Or a character fixating on solving a mystery too. A tourist. I want to pick A Bell from Hell, but I've already done that twice.
I mean, come on, Lance! It's our 100th episode. I kind of feel like you have to.
Maybe I will. I haven't seen it, but I read a lot of references to House of Whipcord, the British war from 1974.
Yeah, Pete Walker, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Where, like, judging and torturing women just for having fun and, living their life. You mentioned my pick.
Oh.
Frailty.
Oh, okay.
So this again, it's a film that displays the horror of people just getting completely lost in religion and thinking that they're holier than thou. And, Bill Paxton directed it, starred, about the relationship between these two young brothers and their father, Bill Paxton, who believes that he's been commanded by God to kill demons disguised as people. So it leans into that whole idea that inside every religious person, fanatic or otherwise, really, lives a serial killer just waiting to be unleashed and burst out in the name of God. So I'm going to stick with Frailty. This is my Praise the Lord double feature pick with A Candle for the Devil. Sorry, A Bell from Hell. We'll probably see you pop up in 2025.
I'm sure you're going to pick it again. You averaging about once a year or so.
It's true. That movie's so fucking good. Basically, any Spanish horror film we pick, I'm going to A Bell from Hell right away. All right, that ends it. Our 100th film.
Yay!
A Candle for the Devil. Yeah, thanks for doing 100 films with me, Erica.
Thanks for doing 100 films with me, Lance. And more. I mean, if we're only counting like devoted episodes to a single film. If you guys haven't gone back and listened to any of our other Blu-ray wish list episodes, Horror Gives Back, June Exploitation, end of year episodes. There's plenty of content to keep you busy until we come back in January for Jollo January.
Yes.
And I do have my pick.
You're ready for it.
I am ready for it only because it is very close to 1,000 and I need to get it on record that I'm picking it before it crosses over the mark. And you know what we're going to do is we're going to continue to ride the Horror Express train, and we are going to be talking once again about Eugenio Martin and The Fourth Victim.
Yes. Oh, this excites me.
Yes, 2 in a row for Martin. But honestly, I had this one on my list since the beginning of Jollo January, and it finally crept up to close to 1,000. I was like, I got to pick it.
Yeah, you're like 20 away. You're good. It's eligible.
Yep. So that's everyone's got plenty of time to watch it. It's on Tubi. It's got a Severin release, but it doesn't really have any special features except for an interview with Martin, which is probably the same one that's on the 88 Films one.
Probably not, because this one was very specific to A Candle for the
Oh,
Devil.
okay. Well, I might pick it up at the Black Friday sale this weekend then.
Oh, yes. A lot of good sales coming up,
Yes.
happening. Yeah, and the one I did watch The Fourth Victim on Tubi, and it was a great quality, and I don't think anything was cut.
No, it was the Severin one too, because it even had the logo before it. So
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, you guys can watch it there.
I'm excited to watch more Carol Baker.
Yes. Okay. So fun. Like last night after I watched The Fourth Victim, I was like, I love Carol Baker. And you know what? I had picked up, but had not watched yet because I have not seen it in years. I watched Kindergarten Cop last night. And I'm saying that now because when we talk about The Fourth Victim and we talk about Carol Baker, we're going to talk about Kindergarten Cop, and I'm going to need you to come prepared with your Arnie impression.
Oh, okay.
So just giving you time to practice that.
Yeah, I still love my review on Kindergarten Cop. I'm like, I mean, is John Kimball really undercover if his teacher name is Mr. Kimball?
That's true.
But I'll work on my Arnold. I already did a very poor get to the choppa earlier in this episode.
You got some work to do.
It failed. Yeah.
Plenty of time for that, though. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to us for this long. If you're new, plenty of stuff for you to go back and listen to. Join our Discord. And if you're not already, you can follow us on Instagram, no more Twitter, and Facebook at Unsung Horrors. And you can follow me on Instagram and Letterboxd at Hex Massacre.
I'm also on Instagram and Letterboxd at El Schibi.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll see you back for our end of year episode and then in January for Jollo January. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. To hear more shows from the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, please select the link in the description.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the 3 hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.